Welcome to HeartWired, Emotionally Intelligent Leadership for an AI World, the podcast where technology meets humanity. I'm Dr. MJ, your host. Today, I'm thrilled to be speaking with Dr. Gemma Sharp, who's doing fascinating work at the intersection of mental health, AI technology, and human centered design. Gemma is a professor of epidemiology, founder of the Global Consortium for Research in Eating Disorders, and CEO of her own AI technology company focused on mental health care. Welcome, Gemma.
Thanks so much for having me. It's great to be with you.
Well, you juggle a lot of different roles. You're a researcher, you're a professor, you're a clinician, you're founder of a global charity, and you're CEO of an AI technology company. So, what inspired you to dive into all these fields where mental health research meets technology?
Thanks for the question, MJ. And I think probably it shows I get bored quite easily, maybe like as a short answer. But I think I suppose given my really strong interest in eating disorders, which are a very complicated issue, um, in terms of solutions, you need to look at it from lots of different angles. And I think in my career in academia, I've been lucky to have a lot of opportunities in terms of entrepreneurship, as well as founding the charity. I think we had some really good leadership at the university I was at the time, who was sort of encouraging us to be like the next wave of academics who weren't just sort of writing papers, who were buried in their offices, not really interacting with the real world very much. And that really suited me because I love interacting with the real world. I think what is the point of research that has no impact other than just being a few pages that not many people read? So I think it was just wanting to make a real world impact and knowing that it needed to be done through lots of different ways.
Yeah. Yeah, I really admire, your clarity because you're purposefully thinking about your multiple roles and how it all fits together. And you really have a drive that really helps you through the complexity. That's the
Yeah.
yeah, that's
I
really great.
I yeah, I'd say other people say that, MJ, for sure, that, that I like to fill my days and nights with lots of exciting things, but, I mean, how lucky am I that I get to be in these positions to actually be able to make, meaningful change. So I consider myself to be hugely fortunate that I have this drive and that I can hopefully use it as optimally as possible moving forward.
So how do you manage all these pieces, especially that you're dealing with very highly emotional situation?
Yes. Yeah, and I think, I suppose maybe a bit of compartmentalization at times, like, when it's this role, I focus on these particular tasks. It doesn't always work out that way. I mean, I think a lot of things intersect and everyone has that in their lives, but I think maybe it's about finding the connections between the roles as well. Like I might be chatting with a patient, for example, and something that they're saying, I'm like, wow, that's something we really need to cover in the charity as an educational webinar, or that's something we should add to one of our AI technologies. So I think it's about finding those synergies as well. So sometimes you do need to really sort of block off time well, and I'm not always the greatest at that. I think I'm still learning, but obviously, yeah, like where those sparks of insight come and flow through to other areas are really magical, and I've been lucky to have that quite a few times.
Yeah, wow. That just to be able to put yourself into that and be aware of like, "Oh, I need to put that into this and this into that."
Exactly,
That's great.
exactly.
You're
And I think even, like, our very first AI
yeah.
technology, and I it was a really fun conversation actually on reflection with a patient, and she was like, Gemma, we talk about all these sort of, ways I should use social media in a, I suppose, more helpful way, but as soon as I leave the session, I forget it, and I just, I just log onto social media and go back into my usual mindset, and we're like, "Okay, so we probably need that kind of therapeutic voice running through social media," and that that was where the very first AI tool came to life. It was really
Mm,
one of those kinds of discussions.
wow. So, when we spoke previously, you said that sometimes you're spending a full year in co-designing AI before
Yeah.
it even gets to trials. So, yeah.
Yes.
So, tell me a little bit about that. How does that work?
Yeah, and I think so we use what's called a double diamond design approach, and I think it'll be familiar to some of your listeners, but if not, no worries at all. And it's a quick Google search, but basically there's four phases. So there's the discovery phase. So that's where you're, I suppose, working out exactly what kind of solution you're trying to solve and really kind of ideating on it. So there's no idea that is too small, too large, too silly, or too fantastic. You basically it's a huge ideas generation stage, and I think that's probably one of my favorite bits. Just hearing what everyone has to say, and you're doing this with a lot of different voices at the table. So researchers are just one component. You've got people who have a lived experience, they're supporters, people who are running services, people who are advocates. You've got all their voices at the table so that you're making sure as best you can that you're not leaving out any important perspectives from the get go. And you carry those voices through all four stages. It's not like they just pop in and out, they come with you on the journey. So again, it's kind of fun, like by the end of the journey, like where you start with this like massive list of ideas to like defining an actual solution at the end. So that's discovery. Then define, you're sort of narrowing down on what's actually kind of feasible to progress from the, your big ideation stage. Then develop, so you're starting to build a tool, but you're sort of making it like in sections and getting feedback on it section by section, such that you don't build something that people hate and then have to redo it all, and then deliver the final stage. You've built that solution, you've got everyone's feedback through the previous three stages, and hopefully they like it because they've been with you on that journey the whole way. And touch wood, I haven't had a time where the develop hasn't, or I should say the deliver, the final stage hasn't being liked and used and appreciated by the people it was intended for. So if you can imagine having all those different people doing all those workshops together, it can take up to a year to get all that done.
Wow. And so that is that what you kind of call the human-centered design approach?
Exactly right, MJ. Yeah, yeah. So that the end user, the person the solution's targeted for, is at the center of all the discussions, rather than me as some researcher clinician who's a step away, making all the decisions, because that's not going to work. That's not going to work for the end user.
And, so do you bring in the actual some of the people who are affected as well, in addition to the
Absolutely.
researchers and clinicians?
Yeah.
Wow.
They're
Okay.
usually the biggest group,
Yeah.
and because they're the ones saying, "This is what I'm struggling with. This is what's not available currently, or this is what's going wrong currently." As a researcher,
Mm.
I might have some ideas about what that is, but I'm not pretending to have all the answers, no way. And I think any researcher who goes in thinking, "I've got all the answers," is, not going to be as successful as they hope to be, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's, like, really having some deep empathy for the especially for the people that are going through the, challenges.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I absolutely love those discussions. They are the most meaningful to me. They're what inspire me and my team. Just people going, "Yeah, this is something I've been struggling with, and I don't wanna struggle with this anymore. I want this to change." And it's just, yeah, it's really inspiring.
Yeah. So, how do you navigate when you have all these different voices and there might be some conflicting needs or perspectives?
Yes.
So about what the tool should do, how you should approach
Yeah.
things. So, how do
Yeah.
you manage that?
Oh gosh, MJ, yeah, this like because obviously I always do this with my team, and sometimes I have more sort of junior people with me who haven't been through this whole process before, and they'll be like, "Gemma, we're never going to get there." They're saying the complete opposite things. How are we ever going to come up with a solution that everyone finds okay? I can assure you that there is always a middle ground. It might just need more discussion. You might be like, actually, let's go back to these people and go, okay, let's find out a bit more about this concern. Let's pitch some more ideas. So you're always kind of ideating with them, and and as I fortunately we have always reached it, and I think maybe sometimes you might go, this is slightly out of scope, and maybe that's another project. You do have to draw a line sometimes, otherwise you'll end up in a co-design process for 5 years and never build anything that someone finds useful. So it's I suppose it's making those
Mhm.
decisions, but it always happens. Like you'll get to this point, usually around stage 2 or 3 out of 4, and you'll go, oh my gosh, are we gonna make it? Are we gonna come up with this solution? But yeah, you always do. Yeah, I think you just trust in the process.
Oh, well, that's great. So you're trusting in the process, of, right, exchanging
Exactly.
ideas.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
those conflicting voices make it a better solution at the end. If you just have everyone agreeing with you the whole way, which as much as that is a nice thing to happen, right? You're like, "Oh, they think I'm great. How wonderful." And then you put that out in the real world and people will say that is trash. So you want them to disagree with you. You want them to push you.
Yeah, this the old, we used to call it groupthink, when everybody is
Yes,
agreeing but you never
exactly.
make the right decision. It's yeah,
No, that's it. You could have everyone drinking the same Kool-Aid, and that's that's not progress, that's a cult. So,
no, no.
yeah, I would rather people disagree with me and disagree with me early in the process. So we always I suppose that's why we have very open discussions at the start, that there's no idea that's not relevant and useful.
So, you also were talking about, when we had our first conversation, you said something powerful. You said, "Just
Right?
because you can, doesn't mean you should with
Yes.
technology." And so
Yeah.
that's kind of a critical ethical principle. Can you tell me
Yes.
more about that?
Thanks for reminding me of that. My team will there's a few things they'll always quote me saying, and that's one of them. And I suppose particularly coming from a mental health sphere as well, like, and now we have all these, like, fantastic language models that we could leverage to sort of potentially substitute and support our roles as therapists. Um, so the technology is always going to be in advance of the I suppose the governance and the actual implementation of it within services, and that is becoming even more obvious in recent times. So I think, say, ChatGPT only sort of really was started to come on people's radars around I think 2023, and now you've got there's probably not a day that goes by where people aren't using this technology. But that doesn't mean I want ChatGPT designing and talking with all my patients 24/7, um, when I know that it makes mistakes. It wasn't designed with eating disorders or mental health in mind. It's not fit for purpose. Using ChatGPT as an example that a lot of people can relate to, and has sort of progressed a lot. I mean, those earlier models in 2023 don't even resemble what we're chatting with now in 2026. So yeah, it's just there is just such huge advancements in AI, but our use of it, our ethics around it, our implementation is still lagging behind. I think we are making a lot of good progress, but yeah, just because it's there doesn't mean we should all be adopting it as is. Like that. That is unfortunately where harm can occur.
Yeah. So, what parts of mental health care do you think AI can currently genuinely enhance, and what has to remain?
Yeah, and I think, and again, this is a a shifting landscape too. I bet if you asked me this in 6 months, I may have quite a different answer. So as of today, um, I think it's already being used well in a sort of more administrative side, and I think that's been on the horizon for quite some time. So helping us with our clinical notes, helping us with scheduling and things like that, patient reminders, those kinds of things. I think that is a lower level of risk, and I think the AI scribes that help us sort of uh, keep records of our sessions are doing a pretty good job, and there's actually a fair bit of research to support that now. I think some of the claims of like, oh, it'll save you hours each day, they are not founded in research. It's more like saving you minutes. But I think clinicians are happy to have any kind of support with their practices being super duper busy. So I totally get that they've been a bit of a lifesaver there. I think also if you've got really good like data sets of people's symptoms and their treatment trajectories and things like that, using AI to make predictions about what treatments would suit people and what we might expect, then that's a really good use of AI. And I think we see it in other areas of healthcare, like for example, cancer care and stuff like that, where we have really good big data sets and registries. That's a really good use, and I think also sort of a more moderate level of risk. I think the higher risk comes, particularly in mental health, is if we're letting the AI act as that like therapist or therapist assistant. That's
Yeah.
high risk for me, and I think that's something that we're still working on. I don't think anyone has got it perfectly right yet. I think we're still working on the safety, and I think also because people often come to therapy looking for that strong sense of connection, and I think AI, people will always be aware that it's a machine of some kind. And I think I always sort of see it as more of an assistant, not a replacement of any kind.
Mhm.
And that's high risk because I think, you know, if you're outsourcing your therapist's voice to a machine, it better be doing an evidence-based, very good job. And if it's not, don't do it.
Mhm. Mhm. Tell me a little bit about the tools that you've created with your AI
Yeah.
company.
And I think, because, we went through those, like, year-long co-design processes, we kind of were aware from the get-go of, like, what people's concerns were in terms of, like, therapeutic rapport, safety, all those really big, important issues. And with Sharp AI Psychology, sorry for the plug, feel free to edit that out if not appropriate. We have two services that are commercial grade, but we have a lot more in development. So Gem was I suppose, one of our very first creations, and it just lives on a website and directs people towards sort of evidence based services, and also gives in the moment coping skills that we would customarily teach in therapy anyway. And EDSE is one of our later tools, and it's a chatbot that helps people who are waiting for eating disorder support. So it's that kind of short duration of care before people start seeing someone in person or via telehealth. And fortunately, our results have been really excellent. And I think we haven't necessarily used the most exciting AI technology in this. We heard that in the co-design. People didn't necessarily want that. They were like, actually, that's a bit unsafe, particularly people at risk, people who are seeking support for eating disorders. We don't want to let a sort of general language model out there and be doing this. So we do have some of our tools that are currently being developed and tested, do have more advanced technology, but our commercial services, we're happy to say that they are, I suppose, slightly more basic in terms of their AI, but we know they're safe. We haven't had any adverse events, touch wood, and long may that continue. So I think it's about building trust, walking before you run. There is no point having some tool out there that gives dodgy advice, that tells people the opposite of what they should be doing, because then you lose a potentially awesome opportunity for AI to support when you do that.
So, if for the people that are listening, other researchers, clinicians,
Mm,
or entrepreneurs
yeah.
that are thinking about using AI in mental health or any other kind of high stake human domain, what's the most important thing they need to understand before they start?
Yeah, I honestly think it's safety. What Uh, yeah, what's in scope for the tool? What's out of scope? And how is that hard boundary defined? And that is, I suppose, in our co-design process, that is done really, really early, because I suppose if you're trying to develop something that's means something for everyone, that's you know that's a huge task, and you're unlikely to be successful with that. It's better to have a smaller, more defined problem that you are solving, and you know exactly what's in scope and what's outside of scope. That would and safety, of course, is a big part of that.
So, Gemma, how could people learn more about your work, both in the your charity, the consortium,
Thank
which does
you.
research, and also
You got it.
in your business?
Yeah, thanks so much, MJ. So, Consortium for Research in Eating Disorders. We've got a website, so core hyphen ed.com.au. It's free to join, and our events are free. So please, if you have any interest in eating disorders and related issues, you're very, very welcome to join our almost 1,000 strong community from 36 countries and 34 partners as we speak today. It's been an amazing journey to be leading that. In terms of our chatbot work, please just email me directly. Maybe we could put that in the show notes, MJ. But and also, I'm just about to start a new position at Adelaide University, so you can always contact me through my university contacts as well. And I'm also on LinkedIn and X. So yeah, feel free to connect with me any way you like. I promise I check all of these different points of contact.
Okay, great. Yeah, and just quickly, if you could tell me why you started the consortium.
Yeah, gosh, and that was about late 2023, so a couple of years now. It was literally that we saw a lot of professional eating disorder organizations that were doing amazing work, but they are really focused on like researchers and clinicians, and unfortunately sometimes have like quite expensive memberships. And we were like, well, how do we get all voices in one place without these kinds of and make them feel welcome, I should say, without these kinds of barriers. And so we literally just wanted a group where anyone could join for free and easy to do with it being online. So it was basically just we wanted a really inclusive community rather than another professional society, of which we have quite a few around the world.
Okay, so anything else before we kind of wrap up that you would like to tell our
Um,
audience?
Gosh, I suppose maybe just AI is in my mind, and I think a lot of other people's here as an excellent tool to help support humans do their best work. I definitely don't see it as any kind of replacement, and that's certainly not how we design anything. I think it's just meant to help with engagement, supporting administration type tasks, those kinds of things. Ultimately, we're in charge of the AI, we're the designers. So, yeah, we're still definitely in charge. I don't see any kind of like AI driven overlords coming down to take over the world in the next few years. No, I don't think so.
Well, thank you. And you know what really strikes me about your work is your deep conviction that technology serves humanity, not the other way around.
Oh, absolutely. My gosh, I suppose because I still, my clinical work is still a huge part of my life, that human to human connection is just so powerful. And that's where the therapeutic gains happen. It's not It's not, looking at some post on social media. I'm sure that can help as well. But yeah, that human to human connection is powerful, and that's how we've evolved over millennia, and that's how we'll continue to exist, I think.
Yeah, and that really kind of embodies emotional intelligence because it's the empathy, it's the understanding what people need. It's the resistance not to take shortcuts, and it's bringing those social awareness is bringing all those diverse voices together and relationship building.
Great.
And yeah, so thank you for your
I feel
leadership.
like I feel like my entire role is relationship building. Like no matter
Yeah.
what it is, charity, business, clinical research, it's all relationship building. And yeah, I just feel fortunate that I get to do this.
Well, thank you so much for being part of HeartWired. And for
Thank
those of you
you.
who are listening, if you want to forward this podcast, please do to people who might be interested in the topic. And also subscribe by pressing subscribe to stay in touch with us. Thank you, Gemma. I really appreciate you being here.
My absolute pleasure. Thank you for the opportunity.